Dear colleagues, I wish you an excellent beginning of this new academic school year as education institutions are opening their doors again to welcome teachers and students. It's great that we are truly back to school and back to work in presence. Of course, we are all aware that COVID-19 is still amongst us and will continue to stay with us. Together with you, ETUCE has been working hard, calling on authorities and leaders to ensure that this term, schools, universities and other education institutions are better prepared for the pandemic and to put efficient health and safety measures in place to protect the physical health and mental well-being of both education staff and students. At the same time, as across Europe, teachers and students are returning to school, we are sadly aware that the war in Ukraine, caused by the unjustified assault of Russia, is continuing. Education institutions are being attacked and destroyed, and many students and teachers will not be returning to their school or university this year, but have to continue learning and teaching online, following education from abroad or other safe regions in the Ukraine. We express our solidarity with the leaders of our member organizations in the Ukraine and the teachers and their families as they continue providing education to Ukrainian students, a seed of hope for the future of young generations. ETUCE and its member organizations continue their efforts in supporting our colleagues from the Ukraine, welcoming and hosting the millions of refugees. I am proud of the strong sign of solidarity that we sent to our colleagues in the Union and teachers of the Ukraine from the ETUCE midterm conference in Liège. We called for peace and an end to the unjustified war which is costing the lives of so many innocent children and citizens. As time elapses, we will need to increase our efforts to ensure the continuation of the support of these brave people, because we are aware that with the downsizing of the economy, soaring inflation and the rise of energy prices, the voice of nationalist, populist and right-wing movements gather momentum, and the support to the people seeking shelter from the war risks to fade. We call on governments and national authorities that the rise of the cost of living must not be at the detriment of the workers. Going to work must be worth making a living. Inflation is growing, so are the prices for food, housing, petrol, gas and fuel, while salaries are stagnating or not adapted to this increase. We are witnessing a growing number of working poor and the widening gap between the rich and the poor, while at the same time big companies and international consortia continue accumulating profit from the crisis. ETUCE calls on governments to put an end to tax havens, tax evasion and establish a fair taxation system where the big companies pay their fair share. The inflation and economic downsizing, but also the rise of state expenditure on military equipment is heavily impacting on public budgets and therefore on education expenditure. For many education trade unions, the new term has started with strike actions, appealing to governments to renegotiate teachers' terms and conditions and to ensure they are adapted to the changed context. Indeed, the changes run deep concerning the need for better protection of the health and safety and well-being of teachers, academics and other education personnel, the push for more digitalization in education, the expansion of artificial intelligence and the transition to a sustainable education system prepared for climate change. ETUCE stands with its member organizations in fighting for better pay and decent working conditions, and the implementation of trade union rights as the basis for quality education. We will continue to organize and work on renewing the education trade union movement to emerge even stronger from this crisis. Meaningful social dialogue and collective bargaining built on trust between the social partners is the only way forward to address the needs of teachers and challenges the education sector is facing. Many states experienced the powerful impact of negotiated agreements during the pandemic, while sadly others chose to ignore and neglect the trade unions and social partnership for a unilateral decision. We call on governments that cutting public expenditure for education and increasing privatization and commercialization of education is not the solution. They will only create more dependencies, exacerbate inequalities in access to education, and jeopardize life chances of generations to come. Quality education requires sustainable public investment. Across the European region, the education sector is facing a severe teacher shortage, which was already inherent in many education systems before the pandemic. There are a multitude of reasons for it and a multitude of measures to address the lack, but only one way of ensuring the sustainable impact of the measures through true and meaningful social dialogue with the education trade unions. To fight for our vision and our common goals as education trade unions, we in ETUCE will be organising our 2-year campaign to promote the attractiveness of the teaching profession based on the 10 key action points adopted at the ETUCE midterm conference in July this year. In the words of the ETUCE president, let us mobilise and campaign and take our ideas out onto the streets and into the discussions and organise to make the progress our members deserve. Together we can achieve this, because together we are strong. Solidarity.